Husband's been secretly working on a new life in another state, planning to disappear without telling me, and I'm standing in our kitchen with a wooden spoon in one hand and a pot of lentils pretending to be patient in the other, and the smell of cumin is so warm and familiar that my brain, out of self-preservation, tries to pretend I misread the signs. Oh right, I should say who I am before the steam fogs my memory. I'm Myra, 36, a community nurse who keeps a pen tucked in her bun and a pocket notebook full of tiny triumphs and emergency contact numbers, and somehow I miss that my own husband has been treating our life like a temporary address. You're probably thinking it started with a dramatic clue, a lipstick-stained collar, or a postcard from a place with too many vowels. It didn't. It started with a toaster. A new one. He came home on an ordinary Thursday carrying a box the size of our disappointments and said, bright as a showroom, got us an upgrade. Our old toaster worked, it just had to be coaxed. This one had 7 settings and a digital display like it needed Wi-Fi. He looked at it the way people look at puppies in shop windows. People don't buy new toasters when they're planning to leave, I told myself. People who are leaving squeeze the last crumbs out of the old machine and ghost the bread. See? Nothing to worry about. I pressed the new, glossy, not at all suspicious lever down and told my heart to boil more quietly. It didn't. Here's the second thing. I found a key. A plain brass one clipped inside the front pocket of a jacket he rarely wore. The kind of key you make at a hardware store with a bored teenager watching the blade bite. No label. No plastic color cap. Just a key like a blank sentence. I flipped it in my palm and felt that little bodice-sized drop you get in an elevator when it starts moving. I'm a nurse, I know what adrenaline tastes like. It tastes like metal and memory. What's this go to? I asked, casual, holding up the key while he brushed his teeth. He spat, rinsed, smiled. Oh, the storage unit, he said. Guitar stuff. Camping gear. You know, the graveyard of aspirations. I laughed because we have an entire corner of the garage with 3 half-formed hobbies laying on their sides like retired greyhounds. A storage unit made sense. But we'd never had one. And if there's anything I trust about myself, it's that I keep accurate track of square footage we're paying for. Then I remembered that he had, a few weeks before, signed up for a gym trial near his office. He'd stopped going after 3 visits because he hates ambient enthusiasm and the word burn. That gym is next to a strip of businesses, dry cleaner, hardware, locksmith, mailbox rentals. The kind of places where new lives begin quietly, with fluorescent lighting and forms. There's a moment you don't notice while it's happening where your role in your own story changes. It isn't the big confrontation, it's when you open your browser in incognito and type the name of your husband's gym with mailbox after it. It's when you call the storage facility pretending to be forgetful. Hi, I'm so sorry, my husband lost our unit number. Can you expect suspicion, but all economies love efficiency. They looked it up by last name, verified a phone number I recognized, and said, Unit 224. Lockers in the back hall. Office closes at 6. I'm ashamed of how easy it was. I'm ashamed of the relief I felt at having something, anything, you can hold in your hands and say, I am not making this up. I didn't go alone. I asked my friend Jaya to come because she loves me stubbornly and owns a face that makes people confess things in checkout lines. We drove across town in her very serious station wagon that smells like rosemary and dog. She parked like a person intent on justice, you could tell by the angle. We signed in at the office where a man with a winter beard and a summer calendar gave us a clipboard and a smile that said, I don't care who you are as long as you pay on time. Unit 224 lived in the back, just like the woman on the phone said, behind a row of lockers painted a color named after optimism. The key fit. Of course it did. The lock shrugged open the way surprises sometimes do in the movies. We rolled up the door and stepped into a space smaller than the argument in my throat. 2 boxes labeled Kitchen M. Not Kitchen US. Not Kitchen Myra and A. Just Kitchen M. My handwriting. Okay, Jaya said, which is her version of you're not crazy. I picked up the top box. Inside, a set of plates my aunt gave us when we got married, the ones with the tiny gold line around the rim like a wedding ring on porcelain. I had been looking for them last week, shrugged, decided I'd loan them to someone in a generous fog. Beneath, wrapped in newspaper, our old photo albums. And under those, a folder. You know the kind. Red. Clasp. Shy about being opened, which of course is an invitation. I am a nurse. I know how to read charts. Paperwork is a kind of blood. We spread the file on the storage room floor like a picnic. New bank account opened 2 months ago, his signature curling like a promise he never kept. P.O. Box receipts. A lease agreement in another state 3 states away starting next month for a furnished 1-bedroom in a building with a meaningful name, Harbor, as if he were the ship. A job offer letter from a tech company headquartered there with remote to start crossed out and on-site underlined. A list in his handwriting, utilities start. Movers, quote. Forward mail. Change driver's license, apt. I stared at the loop of his G in change, the nicks his pen made when it hesitated. There were dates. There were amounts. There was a plan. The plan was patient. The plan was careful. The plan had a start date that did not include me. Jaya put a hand on my back the way you do when a person is at the edge of falling without gravity's consent. Breathe, she said. Don't decide anything while the lights are flickering in your head. I nodded, a full-body nod. We stacked everything back, photographically precise, because I wanted him to discover his secret exactly as he left it. I called the office and paid the next month's rent from my card because petty sabotage is satisfying right until it's a felony. Then we left. In the car I laughed, sharp and mean, because that's a thing your mouth does when your heart is trying to speak and your ribs are a closed captioning error. There is the confrontation you imagine, the table, the folder, the big righteous speech. Then there is the one you end up having because life is a mediocre stage manager. He came home late, smelling like printer ink and stress. He took off his shoes without his usual theatrical sigh. He poured water. Turned. Found me at the kitchen table with the red folder like a heart between us. His eyes did the smallest thing, a dart toward the drawer where he keeps tape and good lies. Then he sat down. Myra, he said, like my name would absolve him if he pronounced it with enough devotion. Let me explain. I pushed the lease agreement forward like a bowl of soup he now had to finish. Start with this, I said. He read the top line, although he knew what it said. People read to delay. He breathed out through his nose in a way that made me want to open a window. I was going to tell you, he said, the most useless of all our verbs. I was waiting for the right moment. The right moment to say you were going to leave the state, I said, keeping my voice at the volume nurses use when we want someone to do something vital without scaring them. Which week has that? Is it between garbage day and laundry day? He rubbed his palm with his thumb, a habit he has when he's rehearsing a speech. It's not like that, he said, the other most useless phrase. It's not about us. It's about me. I'm drowning here. I feel like I'm always almost someone. That job, he gestured toward the letter, toward the city, toward the compass. It's a chance to be actual. I kept putting it off. And then your schedule, the night shifts, your mum's surgery, the car. There was never a good time to say I might go. You mean I am going, I said, and the pot of lentils on the stove popped a tiny bubble like punctuation. He closed his eyes, opened them, and there it was, truth in a cheap coat. Yes, he said. I took the offer. I was hoping, I thought maybe you might consider coming later? When it made sense. When your mom was better. When? When I stopped being inconvenient to your timeline, I said, and looked down at my hands because it was easier than looking at his future. He reached across the table, then thought better of it, a mercy I'll remember. I know how it sounds. But Myra, I've been wanting to be brave for so long, and every time I tried, I felt like I was betraying something. You. Work. My parents' idea of stability. This, he pushed the folder gently, felt like proof I could finally pick myself. I am not a jury, I said. You don't need proof. You need a calendar and respect. He flinched and then quieter because the truth often arrives barefoot, and honesty. I wasn't trying to hurt you, he said. I smiled then, the tired, precise smile you wear when someone confuses intention with impact. You were trying not to be interrupted, I said. He swallowed. I didn't want to be talked out of it. We sat in the electric quiet that follows a thing said out loud. In the living room, our little fern lifted one frond like it was trying to get better light. The toaster on the counter glowed a faint, nonsensical blue. Who knows? I asked. He blinked. What? Who knows you're leaving? I said, because the answer is a social map of a lie. He put his head down, one hand over his hair in that boyish way that used to make me want to fold him up and keep him safe. Kavi, he said finally. His friend from college with the hollow laugh and the relentless hustle. My manager. I told him last week. The landlord there, obviously. The HR person. That's it. Not your mother, I said. No. Not mine. No. Not me, I said, and it sounded even to me melodramatic. But melodrama is sometimes just the correct size. I was going to, he said again, and stopped because even he couldn't carry the sentence anymore. He looked at me and I saw not a villain, but a man who built a raft and only realized after he pushed off that he had never learned to swim with someone else. Okay, I said. Here's what we're going to do. You are going to go to your brother's tonight. You'll take what you need for a week. You will not go to the storage unit. You will not touch anything in this house except your toothbrush and your underwear and your shame. Tomorrow we will talk about logistics. Because I am a nurse and I am very good at logistics. You will tell your mother. I will tell mine. We will tell the dog together because he deserves a united front. He nodded. Then he shook his head. Myra. I am not your obstacle, I said. I'm your consequence. And I'm the person who has shared a bed and a calendar with you for 8 years. We are going to treat this like the emergency it is and the administrative process you have created. I slid the folder back to my side of the table because I wanted to sleep with the facts under my roof. He started to cry then, quietly. I didn't reach for him. That felt cruel and new and, if I'm honest, clean. He put his shoes back on, grabbed a bag, and left with his mouth moving like he was practicing apologies for a different listener. The door clicked. The house exhaled. The pot on the stove had cooked down to something rich and unambiguous. Jaya came over with ice cream and spreadsheets because she knows grief is a creature you feed with structure. We made a list titled Immediate, Next, Later. Under immediate, call lawyer, copy documents, change passwords to accounts in my name, move sensitive things to my sisters, tell my supervisor I might need to swap shifts for a while. Under next, therapy, more therapy, decide if I still want the house, call the landlord he had already called. Under later, which we labeled ocean, decide what to keep, decide what to burn, metaphorically mostly, decide if there was a version of us that wasn't just timeline management. I slept that night like you sleep after a long shift in a ward during flu season, because your body shuts you down to save you from your brain. In the morning I called my mother. She has the kind of voice that makes the kitchen chair sturdier under you. She was silent for exactly 2 seconds, then said, I'm coming, in a tone that sounded like both a threat and a blanket. Bring the silver box, I said, meaning the tin of my grandmother's recipes that my mother carries like it's a relic. She laughed because I always speak in tidy metaphors when I am untidy. I was already putting it in the bag, she said. In the afternoon I called his mother. I don't know what I was hoping for. Maybe for her to say, not my son, and then remember that everyone is someone's son and go quiet. She cried. She said he always runs. Even from joy. When he was little, we'd throw him a party and he'd hide in the coat closet. I pictured him 5 in the dark with the smell of his father's wool, overwhelmed by cake. It didn't excuse a thing, it gave it scaffolding. Therapy was 2 weeks of telling a stranger my favorite anecdotes about us until the anecdotes felt like evidence in a case I didn't realize I was making. The therapist asked me to name the thing I had wanted from him that I thought I would get by being very, very easy to love. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even commitment. It was collaboration. I wanted to be a partner, not a witness. She nodded, wrote something down, said, Collaboration is such a boring word for such an erotic act. I snorted so loudly the plant in the corner shook. There's a part of me that wants to tell you he came back 2 days later crushed by contrition with a speech that made the ferns applaud. A beautiful and sincere essay about fear. Another part wants to tell you I threw his toaster out the window and he watched it arc beautifully into the hydrangeas and realized the error of his ways. Neither of those happened. The real thing is smaller, weirder. He texted me a photo from a motel room near his brother's, an open suitcase, neatly folded t-shirts, the dog-eared book he always pretends he's about to finish. I told my mom, he wrote. I told Kavi I might not take the job. I told myself I can't keep making decisions like a burglar. I want to meet with you tomorrow and talk like an adult. Can I bring coffee? You'd think I would say no out of pride. I said yes out of practicality. Nurses drink coffee with people's worst news and then we make a plan. The next morning he sat across from me, a small, careful man inside the larger man I married, and we did the boring saintly work. We opened calendars. We called the new landlord and asked if the deposit was refundable partially. We talked about our dog, about my mother's upcoming appointment, about the plant in the living room that refuses to thrive in any window and whether that's a metaphor or just a plant that hates us. We listed everything in the storage unit and divided by need, not by memory. We made a separate list titled Promises We Can Keep by Noon, because the only promises I trust are the ones with deadlines. He called the tech company and asked for a remote arrangement for 6 months, explained the situation honestly, which I am certain felt like swallowing a porcupine. They surprised him by being human. He would go back and forth twice a month, they would cover flights. He would not sign a new lease until we finished deciding if there was a we. He would not move a single thing from the storage unit without telling me first. He gave me login credentials to accounts I didn't want to need access to, and our shared budget grew a new column labeled Contingency, Hot. Do you want to be married to me? I asked him finally, because every spreadsheet is a way of avoiding this sentence. He didn't answer right away. He took a breath that looked like he was checking for all his ribs. Yes, he said, but not like this. Not like I'm a flight announcement you hear out of the corner of your ear. I want to be married to you the way people join a team and learn the playbook and then write a new one together because the old one forgot how fast you both run. I want to be brave with you, not away from you. He looked at the table, the ring mark from his coffee cup. I don't know how. Okay, I said. Then we treat it like a skill. You didn't know how to parallel park once either. Now you could teach a class. We will learn to be brave together without needing a secret post office box. He smiled then, involuntary and small, the smile of a student who is sure they failed, and then here's the words partial credit. We met with a couples therapist who wore sneakers with her suits and said things like name the animal. She meant, when fear walks into the room, what do you call it so you know where to put the bowl of water? Mine was a fox, fast, clever, too willing to chew through any net you try to throw over it. His was a tortoise, withdraws first, peeks later, carries the whole damn house on his back until he aches. We practiced saying fox is here, tortoise is here, and then saying okay, what would a human do next? He told his manager the truth about what he was working on at home, what we were working on. He set boundaries with Kavi, whose favorite sport is advising people to leap without looking. He told his mother he'd come clean and she sent me an apology text for the coat closet parties we never learned to leave. I told my mother I wasn't a failure for not throwing him out immediately, and she made a soup that could heal a small nation and said, "Daughter, love is not a one-shot vaccine, it's a long course of antibiotics and you have to finish the pills." We cancelled the storage unit after I took back my aunt's plates and my photo albums and the sensation that my life was a suitcase someone else had packed. He sold the lease he'd signed in that shiny building named after safety. A woman who had just gotten a job at the university took it over gratefully, and I wished her nothing but furniture that fits. Not everything got tied up with ribbon. Some days I still want to put a tracking device on his ambitions. Some nights he lies awake like a lighthouse that forgot to turn, and I can feel the beams of worry scanning the ceiling. I check his face for weather and remind myself I am not a meteorologist. I am a person he chose who can be chosen again. He leaves for that other state twice a month now with an itinerary he put in a shared doc and a photo of us in his wallet like a tether. He texts me from the airport, boarding now. Want anything duty-free? Confidence? A large Toblerone. I text back, bring me the truth and a medium Toblerone. We're building something without a brochure. We still fight. We fight better. When he says I need to run, he doesn't run. He points to the door and I stand with my back against it until the feeling passes, or I move and he walks out and walks back in and we call it a lap, not an exit. I tell him when the fox starts chewing. He tells me when the tortoise hurts. The toaster still looks smug, but it makes good toast, and I'm learning not to assign morality to appliances. If you are where I was, if you found a folder with your future spelled in black ink and someone else's courage, if you held a key that opened a door you didn't know existed, if the person you loved drew a new map and forgot to tell you who the cartographer was, here's what I know and what I would say to you on a quiet night with the kettle just about to sing. Make a folder called Facts. You'll want metaphors. Save those for later. Right now you need dates and signatures and whether the landlord takes Zelle. Bring a friend who can stand in fluorescent light and still be kind. Do not set anything on fire you will need tomorrow. Feed yourself something you didn't cook because your body deserves an uncomplicated gift. Let people show up with soup. Let yourself say the words I am humiliated and I am furious and I am not a fool, I am a person someone tried to make a witness. And when you ask the question, do you want to be married to me? Listen not for the heroics but for the verbs. Heroics are costumes. Verbs are work. If the answer is yes, it has to be a yes with calendars and sneakers and a new habit of telling the story while it is happening, not just after it becomes a myth. If the answer is no, which is sometimes the tenderest truth, then your life will not end. It will begin again boringly and gloriously with a list on the back of an envelope and a plant that finally finds the light it likes. Last week I took the bus to the clinic because the car was in the shop and watched a man teach his small daughter how to read the map on the route. He pointed to the colored lines, traced their turns, showed how they met and separated and met again. Sometimes they go the same way for a while, he said. Sometimes they don't. Either way, we get you home. I am 36, a community nurse with a pen in my hair and a fox in my chest, and my husband is learning how to be brave with me in the same room. Today he's in that other state, sending me photos of a sky that looks like unfinished pottery. I'm home, stacking my aunt's plates back in the cabinet where they belong, boiling lentils that don't pretend to be anything else, practicing my new favorite sentence, tell me the thing you were going to decide without me. And he does. And I do. And the kettle sings. And the toast pops, ridiculous and perfect, as if to say we may not know the whole map yet, but for now you are here and you are telling the truth, and this is how we eat while we figure out the rest.